Are the Cowboys secretly hoping that Dak's not ready to go so they can really truly find out who Cooper Rush is? Because if he were to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, you might legitimately have a quarterback controversy.
There is certainly support from some in Cowboy Nation for Cooper Rush, but they need to go back and watch.
And then also, how about Ron Rivera? Some fighting words for Carson Wentz. We'll get into all that later on in the show. But first, I told you we're doing a Big Willie style, and we're grabbing the big fish. We kick it off this week with Sports Illustrated's very own Mike Fisher, who does a great job at Cowboys Country, the best Cowboys website on the planet in terms of my opinion. And you're going to get a little bit of taste right now with the one, the only Mike Fish, who's parked outside the facility. They get started early down there in Dallas. Mike, good morning, my friend. Thank you so much for hopping on with us and taking the time here.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to what in Philadelphia they call Dallas Week. What in Dallas, they also just call Dallas Week.
Of course it is. Of course it is, right? So, let's start off with the biggest question of them all. And I saw you just published an article regarding Dak Prescott's thumb, and he had an interesting four-word response, I see.
Yeah, he's going to go see the doctor today. The doctor will probably tell him that the swelling is down, but not enough, and your grip is better, but not enough. And that is my prediction. But yeah, he was on the sideline before the Rams game, and he went up to Tom Rinaldi, the Fox sideline guy, and shook his hand and said, "How's my grip feel?" He's surveying strangers to get their opinion. If he gets medical clearance to practice, then he will practice Wednesday, full week, full pads, and he's the starter on Sunday night. But I think that's unlikely. That, by the way, Sunday night has always been the goal. I know that everybody's kind of, including Dak, has thrown out dates, and Jerry has made up dates, and this was the one. I would say at this early stage, it's a long shot for Dak to be fully ready. And by the way, the medical staff will not let him go. If this is 4.5 fingers, he's not playing. This has got to be full throttle, full go, or else. And I would be skeptical of that at this early stage.
Yeah, I saw Jerry Jones came out yesterday, said Dak's our guy. Isn't it great that Cooper Rush played so well that people are talking about it? Well, Jerry, if I remember correctly, you're the one that started this quarterback controversy back when Cooper Rush took over. You said, wouldn't it be great if we had a quarterback controversy? So here we are. And I wonder how much of that Tom Rinaldi interaction was, because Sunday morning I saw Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero both came out and said, well, the thumb, it's not, the stitches are removed, but he still can't grip the football. And by the end of the day, Sunday, I heard Dak say, well, I'll let you know. So I wonder if he just wanted Tom Rinaldi to kind of put that out there. But my question for you, Fish, are the Cowboys secretly hoping that Dak's not ready to go so they can really, truly find out who Cooper Rush is? Because if he were to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, you might legitimately have a quarterback controversy.
There is certainly support from some in Cowboy Nation for Cooper Rush, but they need to go back and watch the Rams game to see that Cooper Rush is getting by on intellect, and his football IQ is through the roof. There's throws he cannot make. They might want to take a couple of them out of the playbook, or else they're going to lose to Philadelphia because he's going to throw an interception. He like a deep out, he cannot throw it at an NFL level. It's why he wasn't drafted. It's why I know that his wife has had a lot of fun with making fun of the Giants because they cut him twice. He was there for a minute. Well, the Cowboys have cut him like 200 times. I mean, he's been a street free agent a million times. In fact, this year alone, he spent half the time on the practice squad as the Cowboys kind of juggled the roster. So what they've found out about Cooper Rush is they have a very capable backup quarterback who the locker room believes in. And that's valuable, but it's not Dak Prescott. When Dak Prescott is playing quarterback for this team, they're trying to score 30 points. When Cooper Rush is playing quarterback for this team, they're trying to score 20. That's the number that tells you the difference.
Yeah, and they didn't even have Cooper Rush on that official 53-man roster coming out of training camp. He was on the practice squad. That's how much they thought of Cooper Rush. But he's come a long way. He's doing things that we haven't seen perform since the days of Kurt Warner. And he's doing it behind a makeshift offensive line, which I want to get to in a second. But first, a lot of people here in Philadelphia are going to be interested to know. I see Micah Parsons had a little bit of groin tightness from my understanding. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it popped up for him in the Rams game, and so they limited his snaps, and they kind of just made him a pass rusher, and it worked. He ended up with 2 of the Cowboys' 5 sacks. He is in an argument right now with the best defensive player in football, Aaron Donald, and whoever else is on the short list. He now, in his first year and change, has as many sacks as anybody's ever had during that span. And as Eagles fans know, and fans in your state know because he's from there, he does so much more than just rush the passer. Some of those other guys that have put up big numbers in their first year and a half, they were just pass rushers. They didn't play linebacker. They certainly didn't play off the ball linebacker or middle linebacker or whatever. So this is a phenomenal talent and also a phenomenal presence. He was a team leader last year as a rookie. So they need him in every possible way. He is as much a difference maker as there is in football. They will nurse that groin this week. But, we've all had this guy, whether we've covered him or maybe he plays on your slow pitch softball team. You just know that even if he's hurt, he's showing up. Micah Parsons will show up Sunday night.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I like the pieces that they've put around this Cowboys defense. And we don't have time to get to them all, but there's some really intriguing role players on this defense. But the studs, we saw it last week. I think DeMarcus Lawrence had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Trayvon Diggs, I think, has a pair of interceptions already. He obviously is going to draw a big-time assignment. How much of an impact are these guys making in the first level, second level, even the third level with Hooker's been playing well, but this Donovan Wilson actually leads the team in tackles. The Cowboys suddenly, they've got impact players at all 3 levels of this defense.
Well, Rick, that's very insightful of you because they have a Pro Bowl caliber player at each level. Trayvon Diggs, the interception guy, Micah Parsons, the do-it-all, and Tank Lawrence at defensive end. But then Jaron Curse, who was a journeyman before he came here, he's a special teamer, Lions, Vikings. He's come here. He's almost Micah Jr. from the safety spot. And he'll go take a tight end and handle him as well as any safety in the league. And he'll rush the passer, and he'll come up and play in the box. You mentioned Donovan Wilson. He's a tackling safety. Malik Hooker, who we remember from Ohio State. If Malik Hooker doesn't have all his injuries and illnesses in Indianapolis, he's an all-pro player. He's inching back towards that now. Anthony Barr is a backup linebacker here, and we remember him for a decade in Minnesota. He's special. And then Dorrance Armstrong is a playmaker at defensive end. Dante Fowler comes in here as a cheap free agent from Atlanta, and on and on and on with some really good pieces that add up to the Cowboys. I think they think they're the best defense in football. The numbers say they're certainly top 3. They will, of course, be tested by a Philadelphia team that almost goes a little retro on offense sometimes on you. That run, and how you handle Hurts. Do you put a spy on Jalen Hurts? Do you have Micah chase him around? Because then you're taking Micah out of your defense. Can Curse do that? Can Dorrance Armstrong do that? I think a spy on Hurts might be a pivot point in Sunday night's game.
Talking to Mike Fisher, Cowboys Country, the best in the biz when it comes to Dallas Cowboys coverage. Make sure you go check him out over at SI.com. And you're right. Dante Fowler is essentially a backup, a former first-round pick on this roster. Jabari Cox coming out of LSU via North Dakota State is another good player. And we mentioned all the safeties. My favorite one, maybe not the best, but my favorite one is this Marquise Bell out of Florida A&M. Had a real good chance to scout him coming out of college, and he's going to be a key backup, I think, for years to come. But let's switch over to the offensive side of the ball now and talk about this offensive line that they've just really turned over in the last year or two. A lot of new faces. Our good friend Jason Peters, I think, missed the game last week. What's his status?
Yeah, he hurt his chest middle of the week last week in practice. He's not playing Sunday night, unfortunately, for all involved, because that would be fun, I think, for Eagles fans to see him in a way. But that's probably going to be 3 weeks for him, the 40-year-old. And, of course, that kind of comes with the dinner, doesn't it? You're a 40-year-old football player. How'd you hurt your chest? Well, I'm 40. That's how I hurt my chest. But you're absolutely right. They lose Tyron Smith. His at practice before the start of the season, his hamstring tore off the bone of his knee. And so he's had to have a surgical procedure to staple it back. They'd like to think that he comes back in December. I don't know if he ever comes back, frankly, at age 31. But They plug in the rookie Tyler Smith. He's been outstanding. They've got a grab bag at left guard, but including Connor McGovern. That's worked. The center, Tyler Biadasz, that's worked. A low, young draft pick. At right guard, of course, the all-pro Zach Martin, as good as it gets. And then Terrence Steele, undrafted, young right tackle, and he's made himself into a football player. So this is not a bunch of blue chip guys who played together for years. This is not the Wall from the 90s. It's not anything like it, except in the end, it is getting the job done. And it's supplemented, of course, by a running game that is kind of dine and dash, if you will, with the things that Ezekiel Elliott does well, supplemented by the things that Tony Pollard does as an elusive runner. And then, of course, they've got problems at tight end where they get dinged up. They'll try to survive those. They've been dinged up at wide receiver, but CeeDee Lamb, they think, is as good as it gets at the position. He'll be tested, of course, Sunday night, because the Eagles have made outstanding moves on their defense to fortify what they do at cornerback. That's a special group that the Eagles have back there, and that's a Cooper Rush problem as well.
Yeah, McGovern, the left guard out of Penn State, I think was a 7th-round draft pick. The center they traded up for, I think, in a 4th round. And Terrence Steele, who you mentioned out of Texas Tech, was undrafted. Unbelievable. Yeah. These guys are playing lights out, considering where they came from.
Yeah, Rick, in the case of Connor McGovern, I think he was a 3rd-round pick, and they had a 2nd-round grade on him or something. And it's been a while. It's taken a while for him to get where they want him to go. And I'm not ballyhooing him as a Pro Bowler. I'm saying that put this group together, and by the time their defense gives up, over 5 games? 19, 17, 16, 10, and 10? I don't know that that's happening Sunday night, but by the time this defense is giving up 13 points a game or whatever, this offense can afford to be a little bit grinded out, conservative, and mistake-free. And Cooper Rush has absolutely been, as much as any quarterback in the NFL, close to mistake-free.
Yeah, and you mentioned the dine and dash combination of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. From a distance, Mike, you tell me if I'm wrong. It looks like Pollard's been the more explosive and fresher running back, yet Zeke seems to get the majority of the work. How is this tandem and combination playing out there in Dallas?
Yeah, and a lot of people want to make this Zeke versus Pollard, and those people aren't in the building. And they're not paying attention. That's just not how it's working here. Those two guys view themselves as brothers. By the way, Tony Pollard's a free agent after this year, and Zeke's big contract has escapability after this year. So they may not be brothers forever. But Zeke still gets you tough yards. He's still really good in pass protection. Tony Pollard, not really good in pass protection and developing maybe as somebody that runs inside the tackles. But you're right, 57-yard run last week for Pollard. Zeke's not going to rip off 50-yard runs. Tony Pollard quite possibly is. And so they've juggled both of them. I say this to all the Cowboy critics who say they should have done this, or they should have drafted him, or they should have They're 4-1. How spoiled Cowboy fan do you want to get here?
Yeah, 4-1 with a backup quarterback. I mean, I would have bet if they were 2-3 or 3-2, they would have been happy with that. And here we are, heading into Eagles week with the chance to knock off the only undefeated team, get a share of the first place NFC Beast, which has suddenly become a strong division. And I'm going to ask you a quick question there, but real quickly, you mentioned CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup was banged up earlier in the year. Noah Brown has played pretty well. Another undrafted guy, I think, coming out of Ohio State that I liked, and he's made himself into a little bit of a playmaker there. Yeah,
they think, and Dak thinks, that CeeDee Lamb is right there with Jefferson, Brown, Devonta, all of them. And he this year, he might get enough targets, especially when Dak comes back, to establish that. There's still an issue with some drops. And maybe that's just part and parcel with what you get here. But CeeDee Lamb has a chance to be a game breaker. Michael Gallup is such a precise player. And you see, he's the toe tap, smooth criminal guy who gets by with smarts and athleticism. Noah Brown is a supplementary guy. But, yeah, if surely the Eagles' game plan will focus on CeeDee Lamb. and focus on Cooper Rush trying to throw it. And what they've done in terms of run stopping and the moves they've made in the draft and elsewhere, the Eagles, if you stop the Cowboys' run and force Cooper Rush to try to win it by throwing too many times, that might be a bad Dallas formula.
All right, Fish, 2 more for you. I'm going to get you out of here. I know you're a busy man. I want to get a game prediction, but first, we don't have time to get into the Ron Rivera comments from yesterday, but who cares? The Commanders are irrelevant. How much credence are you putting into this New York Football Giants 4-1 start? They beat Green Bay. Are you buying into it? You're selling what Brian Daboll is doing? Are you a believer in this Giants football team in terms of being contenders here in the division?
I'm a believer in Saquon Barkley. To me, he's the only weapon they have. So I would say the Giants would eventually fade. The Ron Rivera problem, and he's just being honest, what's the difference between my team and the other teams in the NFC East? Well, quarterback play. And what's rough about it is Daniel Jones hasn't been great. Cooper Rush is just a guy. And Jalen Hurts, a minute ago, we thought couldn't throw. And Carson Wentz still isn't in their class. That's problematic. I don't have a score yet for you, but I assume that the Eagles are favored by 5, right?
That's what I heard. Yeah.
That sounds about right. Having said that, the Cowboys, 3 of these 4 wins have been upsets. In fact, they go through this. They go to the Giants. They were underdogs of the Giants. They win on the road against an undefeated Giants team. They go as a 5-point underdog at the Rams and win. They have the Bengals in here as a 7-point underdog and win. It was Mike McCarthy who coined the phrase, we're nobody's underdog last week.
Yeah, I saw that.
Afterwards, it was great. And the players have grasped onto that. So good for them that they have that belief. By the way, I had a conversation with McCarthy the next day. I go, Coach, you grew up in Pittsburgh. Your dad was a policeman, a fireman, and owned a bar. Don't tell me you don't understand point spreads. You are somebody's underdog. You are literally the underdog. But they don't view it that way. They don't see it that way. And it is fortifying their belief that maybe, just maybe, they'll pull up another upset.
Yeah, he caught himself real quick there. He said, I don't pay attention to that. Yeah, maybe I do. But I will say it's really the ownership. I see Mike McCarthy finally coming and evolving into his own as the Dallas Cowboys coach there.
And Rick, again, the national media and to some degree local fans. And you know how proud Texas is, Well, I've told him this before. I think some people in Texas think he's a Yankee. You know what I mean? That's my Foghorn Leghorn imitation. That they think he's a Pittsburgh Packer Yankee, and they've been very slow to embrace him. They put this guy on the hot seat in May. All he did last year was go 12-5, and expectations here are always high. But let's be fair to Mike McCarthy. He's done nothing wrong in the last 2 years in the stewardship of the Cowboys, while also doing one of the great tricks here, which is making it work with ownership. And the Jones family, great in so many ways, helpful in so many ways, and then unique in so many ways. And the coach that can figure that out has a chance to be wildly successful here. 12-5 and 4-1 is pretty wild to me.
Hey, Fish, I could sit here and talk football with you all day long. Let the listening audience at home know what you got on deck, what kind of content's coming out, where they can find it all.
Yeah, we're on YouTube, by the way, with you. We're at Fish Report. And yes, we allow Eagles fans to come in there and say what they want to say. Just bring something of intellect to the table is all we ask, Eagles fans. I know you can do it. I've been on the Cowboys team bus 15 times going to Philadelphia. By the way, we're at cowboyssi.com as well. We had 300,000 Cowboys and Eagles fans read our website yesterday. So be one of them, cowboyssi.com. I've been on that bus. Eagles fans, you got to be smarter than this. Every time you're throwing eggs at the bus and beer bottles, and I'm looking at the beer bottles come flying at us. They still have the tops on them. They're full. At least drink the beer before you throw the bottle, Eagles fans. Come on, use your heads, kids.
They're throwing bottles with bad intent over there, Fish. Hey, make sure you go follow him at Fish Sports. He's one of the best in the business, and we thank him so much for joining us here on the Football Playbook. Good luck the rest of the way, Mike.